So I've shown off my 17-tone guitar before, so just for context, this is a 17 fret per octave guitar rather than the regular 12, so it's a microtonal guitar, but I have it tuned differently than I did in the last video. I actually have it tuned to a subset of 34-tone equal temperament, so that's a lot of notes. And part of the reason for this is you can play a lot of things much more in tune than you're used to hearing them. So the open strings are, rather than being tuned to fourths and a major third, are tuned to a fourth between these strings, and then an ultra major third, which is close to 13/10 ratio, then another perfect fourth, and then another 13/10 ratio, at least the closest you can get in 34 equal temperament, and then another perfect fourth. And so the open strings, it's difficult to say exactly what temperament in the world of microtonal tuning that I'm going for here, but if it's somewhere in the Archipelago scales, so you could call it an Archipelago scale or an island tuning. And so if you listen, all the notes together, when you play all the open strings together, I'm just playing the second harmonic, they resonate nicely together in a very sort of strange Zen way. But anyway, the purpose of this tuning, a large part of it is you can play 5 limit chords much more in tune. So major and minor chords, major and minor 7 chords, those sorts of things, much more in tune. And they're even more in tune than something like 31-tone equal temperament, which you might be familiar with. But that comes at the cost of there being comma drifts and things to be aware of. But they're very easy to play in this tuning. So, a major 7 chord, you can hear how close to just intonation it is. And a minor 7 chord. So I put up in front of me some of the chords that are available in this tuning. It's a tuning that anyone with a 17-tone guitar can use. And so hopefully if you're looking at getting a microtonal guitar, this might be one of the reasons to consider getting a 17-tone one, is because you can play in this subset of 34 equal temperament. So for starters, like I was showing, I'll pull a diagram up on screen. Major 7 chords and minor 7 chords. And if you mute the 7th string, you just get a major chord. You can hear it's very close to just intonation. And a minor chord. And here's the thing. So I've cranked up the gain on my amp, so it's very distorted now. And distortion tends to accentuate differences between harmonics. It makes them rub together more strongly. And so normally when you're playing a power chord in 12 equal temperament, you can't add thirds without it becoming very busy and noisy sounding. So that's just a root and perfect fifth. And normally if we added the major third to that, 12 equal temperament might sound something like this. So it's very jangly sounding. But if you add the major third from this tuning, so I'm just going to fret it and not bend it, that's a major power chord. So it's a whole new class of power chord. It doesn't sound busy at all because the major third is very in tune, and the fifth is only slightly more out of tune than 12 equal temperament. And so if we just fret all the open strings, let me play this. You could call that some sort of island chord or archipelago chord. And that's a really fun sound, and it's nice that that's accessible just by barring it. So it's always nice when you just, takes no learning at all to be able to play this super zen but very nice sounding chord. So the same shape can be shifted down 2 frets as we were using earlier for the major and minor 7 chords. So we can play a major 7 chord here. You can hear again, it sounds really in tune, even just the root 5th and major 7. And the minor 7. So similar idea. Now we can also play on the A string. So from the A string we can play some sort of 9th chord. So root, major 3rd, major 7th, 9th. And we can shift the 7th and 3rd down and do a minor 9 chord as well. You can hear how much more it rings out than something like 12 equal temperament, just because it's so much more in tune. So this really beautiful sort of calm quality. And because 1 fret of 17 Edo is the difference between a major and minor 3rd, all these chords can be shifted up and down very easily, and you can play quite chromatic, interesting, complicated stuff, moving around by the difference between major and minor 3rds. So what else? So we have dominant 7 chords. This is quite interesting in this tuning because this tuning does a fairly bad job at representing the 7th harmonic, but it is still much better than 12 equal temperament. So it still has that sort of 7th harmonic quality to it. So when you play a major chord with the 7th harmonic above it, its closed form will be frequency ratios of 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. So it's a very simple chord. So it has a bit more bite and a bit less harshness than a regular dominant 7 chord, which I think makes it a bit better for something like blues. It might not be as good for classical music where you want a really strong tension resolution, but it still has that tension that you can use to resolve. So it sort of splits the difference between being a nice relaxed 7th harmonic and being a nice tense, dominant function in the 7th chord. So I'll play a little 12-bar blues, just really simple, so you can sort of hear in context how it sounds, and you can compare it to 12 equal temperament where it's a bit more busy. That didn't end up being exactly a 12-bar blues, but you get the idea. The other chord that you can use using this shape, just by shifting the 3rd and the 7th down, is the minor 6 chord. And you can fret using this finger on 2 different notes and play the 9th as well. And so all of these notes in this chord I'm taking from 17 equal temperament. So that's not a normal sounding major 6th, that's actually a super major 6th. And that 9th is the 5th above the 5th. So it's actually sharper than a 9th you're used to. So these both, the 6th and 9th, are both sharper than we're used to hearing. And the minor 3rd is also sharper. So this part minor 6 part could be thought of in closed form as approximating a 10 to 12 to 15 to 17 chord in frequency ratios. And so again, that's, it's a bit more stable than you might be familiar with as a minor 6 chord, and so it gives it a sort of nice calm quality, which means it's really nice to end a piece on. It still has that minor 6/9 sound that we're used to, but it sort of locks in a little bit better, so it has a bit of different quality. With the dominant 7 chord, we could also fret that last string as well, and call that a dominant 7 sharp 9. And obviously that's not a sharp 9. It's definitely a flat 10. But I'm talking about these using sort of familiar music theory terminology. Most people will call that a dominant 7 sharp 9 sound. Despite the fact that the circle of fifths is a bit weird in this tuning, because you've got 2 different circles of fifths which are intertwined with each other. 2 separate 17 eidos offset from each other by half of a step. So more chords that are available. You've got, say, you could play the 3rd on this string, and then the 5th and root. And then on the top string you can play the 7th. And the same thing goes for minor, you just shift the 3rd and the 7th down. And one of the interesting things about this shape is you can add what you might call the equal 11th, as in it's 600 cents, so it equally splits the octave. I'm saying as opposed to a harmonic 11th, which is flatter than that, it's about 11 on 8, or a natural 11th, which is about 500 cents. So if we play a major 7 chord with a 600 cents added, it's a very strange, interesting xenharmonic quality. So that chord, it fits our expectations. It's sort of built similarly to regular major 7 sort of Lydian chord sound. But because everything's a little bit more in tune, it sort of sounds, I would say, almost more stable than the Lydian chord sound again. Cool, so other shapes we could use could be something like this, root 5th, major 3rd, and then add the harmonic 11th. And that's a very interesting Zen sound. So in root form that would be an 8 to 10 to 11 to 12 chord. So 8 to 10 to 12 is the same as 4 to 5 to 6, major chord. And then you add the harmonic 11th. So that's very, very in tune sounding. And the harmonic 11th in this tuning isn't perfect, but it still resonates enough, I think. You can hear it sort of resonating with that 11th harmonic. And the same sort of shape again, just like we were using before. If you add this note here, you can play a harmonic 13th chord. So we've got our harmonic 13th. So we can sort of add that very easily to our chord. We can go. Really interesting neutral sound that's quite different to the neutral sound you get from the harmonic 7th. Sorry, the harmonic 11th. So you can get more creative with your chords and do more interesting, strange things by, say, going this sort of chord. So you've got an 11 on 8 sort of tritone sound here, an 11 on 8 frequency ratio, and then So this is sort of a different voicing of the harmonic 11th chord. So I think that could be very useful as well, for getting that very zen sound. And so lastly, there's this shape which you can sort of use to play some different melodies and things over chords. So root, 5th, 6th. You could also instead play the root, 5th and 9th. And the 6th and 9th are a wolf interval apart. So that could be quite useful and interesting if you want to have it in your chord, or it could be a bit harsh, depends on the context. You could also use it as a tension and resolve it. But from there, we could add at the top the 5th, and then shift the 5th up one to get the harmonic 13th, or shift it down one. To get the harmonic 11th, and this is with no thirds in it. But we could add the 6th if we want, then call it an inversion of another chord. Some of these shapes are hard to get. But yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea of the sort of thing that you can do with a 17-tone guitar tuned this way. And so I call this tuning DGdown because if you look at the strings, you essentially tuned it almost to normal tuning, but the D and G strings are tuned down by half of a 17 equal temperament step, so by 35 cents. Let me know if you're interested to hear more about different microtonal guitar tunings and things. The only microtonal guitar I have is a 17-tone guitar. I do have a 12-tone guitar, and I might be getting another microtonal guitar in future. But just playing around and trying to get as many resources out of this microtonal guitar as I can, I found that this tuning is really good, and I've used it in a number of tracks. It's really good for accessing sort of different familiar chords that are more in tune, as well as more sort of higher up, more complex parts of the harmonic series. Thanks for watching.